If you're ready to unlock more better days, to take control of your health, to push past your limits and unleash your full potential, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Bettle. For over 2 decades, I've worked with elite athletes and high performers, helping them optimize their bodies, strengthen their minds, and recover from setbacks. Now I'm bringing that expertise to you through the Vitality Collective podcast. In each episode, we'll dive deep into the science, strategies, and real-world solutions you can apply right away. Whether it's enhancing your physical performance, avoiding or recovering from injury, sharpening your mental edge, or simply feeling your best every single day. With insights from top experts and thought leaders, this podcast is designed to help you take action, feel better, and live the life that you deserve. Welcome to the Vitality Collective podcast, where every day is vital. Today I'm joined by Angelo Gingerelli, a veteran strength coach and educator with decades of experience helping athletes compete at the highest level of college sports. In this episode, we talk about what it really takes to succeed in that environment. From choosing the right school and managing expectations to preparing physically and mentally for the jump from high school to college. If you're a parent, coach, or athlete getting ready for that transition, this episode will give you the insight you really need to make those years count. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I'm joined by Angelo Gingerelli. He's a longtime strength coach with Seton Hall and he's decades of experience guiding young athletes through this transition coming into college and helping them thrive. He wrote a book on this process called The Next 4 Years, and we're going to talk a little bit about that process. And so if you've got kids who are currently in that process or about to go into that process, this really is going to be a must listen. We're going to give you some real insider knowledge on how to make that the absolute smoothest process possible. Angelo, welcome.
Hey, Dr. Jeremy, man, thank you so much. I'm a fan of the show for a while now. Excited to be here today.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you saying that. And so tell me, you've written this book. Where did that come from? What was the inspiration for you?
I was at Seton Hall for 20 years. I hit the exact 20-year mark, and then I left a couple months ago to take a job in academia at another university. Made a good decision so far. But by the second 10 years I was at Seton Hall, I was realizing when we were bringing recruits on the campus, right? I was meeting with families, meeting with parents, meeting with players, and they just had no idea what they were getting into. They just didn't know what questions to ask. They just didn't know what it was, right? So the example I always give is think about the first time you bought a car. Right? You have no idea how to make what the payment should be, what kind of stereo you want, what tires you need. By the time you buy your 5th car, you're good at it. You know somebody at the dealership. You know what your trade-in value is. You know what model you want, stuff like that, right? Well, the thing is, nobody goes to college 5 times. It's almost all first-time consumers. And by the nature of, 1%ers get to play at a high level in college, there's probably, there's for almost every family, it's a first-time purchase, sending a student athlete to college. So I just wanted to get the information out there and arm people with the tools they need to, if you're lucky enough to be recruited, to know what questions to ask, to know what you're looking for. And then the one thing, if we're going to keep it real, I got a little lucky on, right? Being a lifetime strength and conditioning coach, about half the book is physical preparation, right? You're ready for day one. But also I started writing the book and the NCAA changed drastically. So I put out a resource that's covering things like the transfer portal, NIL. It touches on revenue sharing because that's the thing that really happened at a different level once the book came out. And that's like less than a year ago now. But I got kind of lucky in that, I wrote a book about an environment that was changing drastically. And even if, so for example, if you're a family with 2 college athletes and one graduated high school in 2019 and one graduated high school in 2024, the landscape is completely different. It's just it's a different world in just the last 5 years. So I tried to make it as up to date as I could at late 2024 and let people know what they're getting into.
Wow, what a tremendous resource, because there really isn't a step-by-step guide for this. I think you're absolutely right. People go in, and I saw it over and over when I was working at the college level. Parents coming through, and they don't know how to distinguish between good coaching, bad coaching, good performance department, bad performance, good medical, bad medical. So it was really obvious for me that was something that was needed. So it's awesome to put this out. And let's dive into that process a little bit. For the parents out there who may be going through this for the first time, what are the steps that every athlete, whether you're a top recruit or you're planning to walk on or you're just being lightly recruited, what are the steps you're going to have to go through?
I think that the first thing is to realize that even if you were a great high school player that played on every travel team, every high level AAU experience you could have, tons of personal trainers and worked at a high level, no matter how high you got in high school, college is a step up from that, right?
Right.
Just the travel is different and more rigorous. That your day is just longer and a lot more is crammed into it than it was in high school. And the word I keep using in the book and every time I present about this is work capacity. The
Right.
biggest problem I saw with freshmen in every single sport, from literally McDonald's All-American basketball players to walk-on cross-country kids, was the schedule and work capacity just wore them down by right about now, by
Yeah.
mid-October every year,
Yeah.
right? And the kids that had the bigger base and came in and just ready to work more always did better, always stayed stronger, less injured, performed better when it was time to perform. So I would say number one, realize work capacity is going to be an issue
Yeah.
for just about. And I'm not saying high school athletes don't work hard. Some of them work incredibly hard.
For
It's just worth
sure.
taking that work ethic to another level when you're on a
Well,
college
and
campus,
and
right?
that's a really interesting point because it isn't when you say work capacity, it's not just physical work capacity, is it? It's also the mental engagement that you've now got at the higher academic level, and your schedule now is so much more packed. So I think there's a mental and a physical component to that.
Right, right. And so I think the academic thing, the mental side of this is twofold, right? I dealt with a lot of student athletes that were really into academics and did internships every summer and took hard classes and they knew what they were doing when
Mhm.
they graduated, right? In
Yeah.
my opinion, that's what college athletics should be. It's a launch pad to the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
I also dealt with a lot of student athletes that didn't care anything about the classroom. They were all going to the NBA, going to Major League Baseball, and they were just punching a clock in the classroom doing the bare
Right.
minimum. But even
Right.
if you're in that category, your sport playbook is three times the size as it was when you were
Yeah.
in high school, right? And just the amount of time you're doing and just the level of sophistication of the plays you have to learn and execute to play college basketball, college baseball is just a whole nother level, right? And I think one thing you see at the lower level, if you're a really talented high school player, you can get away without knowing the game that well, right? Athleticism covers
Mhm.
up a lot of flaws if you're in a high school level. In college, when everybody's athletic, now you gotta know what to do, right? And then the other
Yeah.
thing is, if you're a really good high school player and you mess up a play, miss a read, whatever it might be, if you're the best player, coaches can't really take you out. They got to keep giving you chances, right? Well, now
Yeah.
you're on a roster where everybody's good and has that skill set. You can go to the bench real quick, right? So I
Hmm.
think there's a level of mental pressure people just don't understand. There's the classroom side of things, and then there's the playbook side of things. Of we're going to move faster than we ever moved before and execute more kind of mental intensive stuff than ever before on the field, court, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that a lot as well, both at the transition from high school to college, but then college to the pros when we would go through the drafts and the combines. When you've been the best kid, every team you've been on, every year, and suddenly you go into an environment where now you might be the fourth or fifth best because all of that talent just keeps going. And it can be quite a mental challenge for people from a mental health standpoint, an identity standpoint. And you've got to have a lot of resilience, I think, built in to be able to function.
And there's a couple things in that too. There's the sports side, right? You went from being the best player in probably a 50-mile radius, not even the best player in the locker room, right? That's a thing that happens, right?
Right.
And in the era we have now, it used to be you went to college as a 17 or 18-year-old man, a boy or girl, and you were playing with 21 and 2-year-old men and women. That's a
Right.
big ability gap, right? But now, in the era we are in now, with the NLI transfer portal, COVID year, grad year, you're 17 or 18-year-olds, a freshman, and you're playing with 24, 25-year-olds, right? You're
Right.
playing with grown men and women. And
Right.
even with the exception of someone like LeBron James, who was basically a
Yeah.
superhero when he was 17, the
Yeah.
best 17-year-old isn't as good as a, say, above average 25-year-old, just the way we
Right.
mature physically. And the other thing we're looking at, too, we're looking at really young people away from home for the first time, most likely,
Yeah.
right? And they're, maybe they used to see their parents every day. Now they see them on holidays. They're leaving a significant other at home, maybe, right? While they're trying to figure out a career path, what they're doing in the summers, and trying to play at a high level. So again, what
Yeah.
I always say to high school kids and their families is college athletics is a great time. It could be the best time in your life, but it's
Yeah.
not an easy time. It's a time for growth and a time for developing maturity. And if you handle it right, it can really be an amazing couple of years. But you know as well as I do, sometimes it doesn't go well. And I
Yeah.
think we need to try to give people the resources to get the most out of it, and on both
Yeah.
sides, right? Because it's
Correct.
twofold. If the player is better prepared, he or she's going to have a better experience, right?
Yeah.
But if the player is better prepared, the school and the program will also have a better experience by winning more games, higher retention rate, and just having a better vibe on campus with people that are
Yeah.
happy to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's start breaking that journey down a little bit then. So you're a great high school player, and then you start getting emails from the coach, right? You from the college coach, you start getting these recruiting. What sort of stage do they start getting recruited now?
Okay, a couple things. I'm such a fan of the show. I'm going to bring it up and use a word that made me laugh every time you guys said it, probably 3, 4 episodes ago. Everybody's elite, right? Everybody with a checkbook and a dream is elite these days. But I
Yeah.
think to some extent, if you start getting those letters, you probably really are elite, right? It means the next level thinks enough of you to at least invite you over for a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah.
At least it doesn't mean you're going to make it. Not everybody gets a letter, gets a scholarship, but at least you're in the conversation. So now
Yeah.
at this point, you're probably 15, 16, and all the tournaments, all the showcases, all the travel ball, it all starts to pay off at this point, right?
Right.
And if we're going to keep it real, it doesn't pay off for everybody, right? I'm a father of a
Correct.
10-year-old softball player, and I'm very active in my town Little League. I'm not sure what your listeners think about this, but I'm the coach of my daughter's softball team. I'm the head of softball operations for my town, and I'm the safety officer for the Little League. And that is a
Right.
level of suburban dad I was not ready for. Like I was cool not that long ago, and now every night I'm at the Little League field. But I end up in this conversation all the time of like,
Yeah.
how much time and money do you want to invest in your kid playing baseball or softball? When you look at the numbers, it's really not good. The joke I always
Yeah.
make is if you want to go all in on your kid's athletics and endeavors and try to get him or her to get a college scholarship, you're statistically better off just buying lottery scratch-off tickets, right? And just seeing how that works out for you and your family.
Yeah.
Because some of those hit, just like some kids actually make it all the way through. And the other thing I say with the experience, I think is kind of important for your listeners. Even if you got a scholarship to someplace like Seton Hall where I was, that was $75,000 a year, just a
Yeah.
$300,000 financial transaction over time, which is it's
Yeah.
life changing money for just about anybody, right? But if that college scholarship forces you to be number one, chronically injured physically the rest of your life
Yeah.
and in the medical system forever,
Yeah.
or have or need chronic mental health care for the rest of your life, you
Yeah.
should have just paid for college, right? So I think a lot of you think long term a
Yeah.
little bit of I'm going to give 4 years of my life now. Is that going to leave me in a better place when I'm done, or is it going to
Yeah.
leave me in a place with medical bills and counseling services and all this for the rest of my life? So I think that's
Yeah.
important. But at least to go back to your first question, you start getting some letters and you start taking visits usually, right? That's still the case right now. In
Yeah.
the NIL world, I think visits are just about over, right? It's pretty much just show me the check and I'll decide if I'm coming or not. But in your
Wow.
non-revenue sports, for some people, the visits are still important, right? And I
Yeah.
always tell people, if you're allowed 5 visits, that could change any minute, but let's say it's 5. Do as much research on everywhere you might go as possible
Yeah.
and think long term. Okay. And know what questions you want to ask when you get there and realize that you want to have a great 4 year experience in college, but you want to graduate with a degree that's going to set you off to do some good things in life when you get done. Right. And
Well,
for
and Angelo, I think that's sort of the moral of that story that you were recounting there about, these elite players that we talked about with Dr. Carlos Daniel a few weeks ago. Elite really is the whole package, right? It's the genetic, it's the work ethic, it's the skill. When you're getting those letters, I think it's important, even for the top level recruit. What is your academic future going to look like at that institution? Because often you could get injured at any point. I saw it over and over again. Guys just get recruited number one and then they're out of the league in a couple of years.
I'm going to give you one thing I always say to people on this. I think it's super important, right? Number one, you have to do the baseline research. What majors are offered? What do
Yeah.
I do? Am I obligated to be on campus all summer? Because if you want to say, for example, you're at a school in New York City and you want to intern in the finance world in the summer, that's a great asset,
Yeah.
right? That's going to set you up for a great life. But if you have to play summer ball every summer and we're going to send you to Montana and you can't intern with Ernst and Young, Well, that's going to alter your future, right? So,
Yeah.
and one thing I always say is I've dealt with so many coaches over the years, and I've never dealt with coaches that are outright liars. Never. But I
Yeah.
deal with a lot of good salespeople, right? And they're showing you the best. So I'm going to give you an example from my world that I think will resonate with everybody. We have our main campus at Seton Hall, and we recently, about 10 years ago, took over this beautiful medical campus about 7 miles away. So if you want to do athletic training, physical therapy, nursing, occupational therapy, your classes are on the satellite campus that is amazing. State of the art labs, the best professors, best AV setups ever, best thing ever. Well, if you're a student athlete, you can't be on that campus 5 days a week and be at your practices and your games, right?
Yeah.
So I say you got to look into something like that because we're going to show you these beautiful labs, but we're not going to tell you, oh, when your classmates are in the lab, you're playing DePaul. You're not at the lab,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think one thing I would say, look at if you want to major in something, go down the alumni. Look what people are graduating with. And if you're going to play Division I basketball and no player ever at that program was able to major in finance, guess what? You're not going to major in finance either.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah. That's
everybody
not going to
gets
be
like
you.
the baseline degree that's basically useless, maybe you want to look at another school, right? And think
Yeah.
about, I want to be X. I'm going to go to school that's going to prepare me to be X.
I even saw that at UCSB. We're a mid-major college and saw guys that were never going to be like high-level pros who weren't allowed to be a part of the engineering
Yeah,
course, right? Which is
yeah.
UCSB is number 2 in the world for engineering. You graduate with a degree from there, and you're setting yourself up for a good career. But for these mid-major college athletes, not being allowed to be a part of that degree because it would interfere with practice, I thought was really short-sighted um, from an academic standpoint.
You can make a very good argument. It's exploitive to the players, right? It's not fair to them. If you have someone that can play Division I basketball and major in engineering, and they can get a degree that's going to they'll name their price at some point in their career, be
Right.
one of the best engineers in the world, and we take that from him or her so they can be at practice. That's not fair, right? But it's
Yeah.
also, I think, it's exemplary of the systemic problem in college athletics because if we're looking at a model where we're going to pay the players, which we are, where NIL
Right.
money is the only thing that
Right.
matters, and we're going to ask all of our alumni for donations to fund these NIL accounts to pay
Yeah.
the players, right? So think about this for a second. Who has a higher earning potential over their career? An NBA player that's a fringe guy, 12th man on a roster, a couple years, then goes overseas, and then by 30 is like an AAU coach. That's a way to do life, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
a person that gets an engineering degree from one of the top schools in the country and is an engineer and never makes $1 million a year, but makes 250,000 for 40 years.
Yes.
Who's the better donor? Who's not
Yeah.
mad at the school and ready to write a check and get the
Yeah.
new NIL deal? So I think to some extent we're thinking too, or not. I'm saying we. I'm not a part of this anymore.
Right.
I'm kind of happy about. But if you want,
Yeah.
I always argue the argument too. Like we go all in college sports on our football and men's basketball and football teams, as you
Yeah.
probably should. They have the biggest fan base, biggest social media follow, sell the most tickets, completely fair. But if we take care of baseball and men's soccer and our swimmers that are all going to graduate and have very high earning potentials over time,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
that the donor you want? Maybe the person doesn't make $1 million donation when they get the max contract at the NBA, but they donate $10,000 a year until they retire.
Yeah.
Long term to me. That's just as valuable. Am I right about that?
Yeah. 100%. And I think that as we bring this to the parents choosing, I think these really feed into the questions that you need to be asking about the department you're going to be in, right?
Yeah,
Am I
hundred
going to be
percent.
able to thrive? Because I'm probably not going to be a professional swimmer,
Right.
right? Are
I
you
think
going to
that
let me take the classes I need to take?
Yeah, and that's the first thing I would do is figure out academically what's this going to look like, right? I
Yeah.
would look into what your summers look like, right? Because we want to say that, we always keep our football and men's basketball players on campus in the summer for most,
Yeah.
bigger colleges, but that's growing right now. Volleyball teams are staying all summer. Some swimmers
Right.
are staying, and it's not a bad thing, but it means you're not interning over your summer, right? So you got to kind of figure out what that means and how that fits into the bigger picture of your
Yeah.
life. But the other thing is, if you really think the NBA is an option, summer school might be the best thing to stay around your teammates and play at a high level and keep getting
Yeah.
better. That's fair too. But I think knowing what you're getting into, and I think knowing what's available
Yeah.
academically, and the thing I always say is, after you sign your national letter of intent, or now it's just called a contract, Normally you do that in the spring of your senior year for most sports, right?
Right.
And
Okay.
it basically gives you about 100 days to prepare for your first day on campus, which is in late August, September, depending on what sport you play. But
Yeah.
I always say, that's a great time in your life. It's graduation, it's the prom, it's you're probably a local celebrity if you're that good of an athlete in your town.
Right.
Maybe you're taking a family vacation. Go have a great time. You don't
Yeah.
shut your life down to train. But if you train for an hour a day over those 100 days, it's 100 hours in 100 days, you'll show up better prepared than almost anybody else in your freshman class. You'll do better than just about everybody there, right? So I think you want to be a little smarter about that. And the joke I always make is once you put the video up online where you put the hat on and you get all the likes, all the accolades, you're going to, State University X, whatever it might be. The next day it's time to go to work, right? That's the starting line.
Right.
It's not the finish line. And what I tell people to do is the first thing I recommend every parent or athlete do is once you sign the deal and it's written, you're going, contact the strength and conditioning staff, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the first people you're going to deal with about 90% of the time and find out what's expected, right? Is there a conditioning test? Right? For example, I have to run a 6-minute mile. Do I have to do the yo-yo test in soccer, whatever it might be, and start getting ready for it now, right? Because
Right.
maybe if it's April of your senior year, that conditioning standard might be impossible. But if you work at it the right way and systematically approach it and attack it, you might be able to pass it in August if you do it the right way, right? So I think knowing what you're
Yeah.
getting into and knowing what the pillars of the program are super important, right? So, for example, if you're going to a place that doesn't believe in Olympic lifts, you getting great at snatches and cleans all summer is really a waste of your time, right?
Correct.
But if
Correct.
they squat heavy and deadlift heavy and are into bench and pull ups, well, then go get good at that over the summer so you show up ready to be a rock star your first day on
Yeah.
campus.
And most strength coaches, right, for these programs, if you're the kid that's just signed and the strength coach gets a call, that's a good sign. Like that strength coach is going to tell the coach and he's going to send you a program to do. So
Couple
I think
things
that's
on that.
really good.
For 20 years, 100% of the time, the men and women that contacted me early were great student athletes.
Yeah.
They were the best kids, the highest achievers, the best personalities, the best people. But and what I would say to families and student athletes in this, if you send an email or you make a call to your strength and conditioning coach and he or she doesn't get back to you, you should decommit and go somewhere else. Because if you can't get a hold of them now, you're not going to get a hold of them when you need them when you're on campus. And
Yeah.
joke, I always say to people, I always look at our student athletes gave us 4 years of their life. The
Yeah.
least we could give them is a call or an email at the
Yeah.
bare minimum,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think you got to be responsive as a coach. And I think if you want to build a relationship with these players, as we all do as coaches that are probably listeners to this show, start as early as you can. Get to know them as soon as you can. Be on the phone, checking them on email. You can argue, you do social media with them or not. That's probably another conversation. But be a part of their life as soon as you can. Help make the transition smooth
Yeah.
so that when they're there and they're playing, and number one, they know they can reach out to you when they're on campus, they're struggling with something, right? Number two, they trust you in the training if it's already worked for them.
Right.
And number three, you have a good relationship with them if you were there for them from literally day one.
Yeah, and I don't think people necessarily realize what a big part of your life the strength conditioning, the performance staff are going to be. We actually got more time with the student athletes at UCSB than the coaches did, right? So we
Yeah,
were a very, very big presence in their lives. And I also think it's important to understand as you're going through and asking these questions, and you mentioned earlier the campus tours. I would say 100%, no matter what money they're offering you, go see the campus. Go and meet people, talk to people, look at the area. You might hate it. You don't want to show up day one and realize you're going to hate it.
yeah,
But my point there was going to be in that questioning, how do you vet the strength coaching staff, the medical staff? You should also be looking at what are the injury rates for this team, right?
yeah.
Is this team just injured the whole year? Because again, you said it earlier, you're probably not going to be the difference there. You're probably going to follow that trend. So I think
Yeah,
those are
that's
really
completely
interesting
fair.
points.
Yeah, and I honestly, I haven't really thought about that before, but I guess there's a couple ways you could look at that. But one is if they're chronically injured, right? The strength staff, medical staff might be to blame. That's a real thing, right? They might be recruiting a level of athlete that's not ready to play at that
Yeah,
level, which
yeah,
means the program is not going great, not going in a great direction, in my opinion, if that's what's happening, right?
yeah,
And the other thing I think that you got to think about too, a lot of times people say like, oh, so for example, I'm a point guard the current point guard is injured, that's my lane. That's where I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
But it also means if you do the same things he or she did, you're probably going to get injured next to an
Yeah.
extent, depending on body type and predisposition, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I think you want to look at what's going on there and realize more often than not, you are not going to be the exception to the rule. You're going to be the
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah. And I think I like that point. It is a very complex injury issue. I don't want to point fingers at strength staffs and medical staffs here because it's something for you to vet overall. You know, if the coach is going to run them to death, nothing your strength coach can do is gonna stem that tide. So I think understanding how does the whole program operate and what that'll allow you to do, can you then have a goal to prepare for? So if people are coming in chronically underprepared and breaking down, you can be the exception, right? You can prepare for those demands,
Yeah,
understanding the style of play and
exactly.
the lifting.
Right. If you know what you're getting into, you can take your time, prepare for it, and be ready for what's coming at you.
Yeah, yeah. So we're starting to get into that. We're signing, we're training. We've I think it's great that we're reaching out to the strength staff. What are our next steps as we show up on campus? What are you seeing in these athletes who are successful?
Okay, I think the biggest thing, and it's a cliche that's actually true. It's about time management and planning, right? So I think
Interesting.
the kids that do the best, hopefully their coaches are good about having a schedule and sticking to it and using software like Teamworks or whatever it might be to be like
Hmm.
on Mondays we do X, on Tuesdays we do X. You have to be in a building at this time. You could leave at this time. We stick to that, and then they get their syllabus and they match up their syllabus to their athletic schedule, their syllabuses, their syllabi to their
Yeah,
athletic schedule, and start to look at things like, okay, I have a project due on October 15th, but we have a road trip the weekend before. So I have to either do it before I leave or bring my stuff on the road with me to do in a
right.
hotel. But start to think one, higher education has a lot of shortcomings, but one of the good things is it kind of teaches you how to follow a schedule. And for the most part, probably professors more than coaches stick to the syllabus, right? So you know when stuff is due, you know when you have exams, you know what classes you got to bring your A game to. Just like I have morning lifts on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, right?
Yeah,
So, for example, then you got to probably not go out and have a great time on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday night, right? Save it for the other nights of the week and attack your classes the same way. And then the other thing I
right.
would say, get to know your professors right away, introduce yourself. And I'm not saying kind of try to beat the system, but if you're going to miss a lot of class for road trips, right? If you're going to be in class exhausted a lot of times, you get early morning conditioning, and then you're going right to like a calculus class. Let them know, right? Because
Yeah,
I haven't known a lot of professors that don't like student athletes, but I think if they don't know what you're going through and don't understand why you're always miss class every Thursday or something, let them know what you are, and then let them know you want to do well in the class, right? So I think that's super important. Then the other thing I would say, start to think about lifestyle too, right? There's academics, there's athletics, and then there's what are your meals like? How much water are you drinking, right? And start to learn the campus and learn, okay, well, the dining hall closes at this time. I got to miss it that night for I have individual practice. I got to figure out a way to get food that night, right?
right.
Here's where the water fountains are. Here's where I can refill my water bottle,
Yeah,
stuff like that. So try and realize that it's going to be different, right? There's the way you were in high school, which got you here, which is probably really good, really effective. But now we're in a different environment, different food is available, and parents aren't there to tell us what to do.
yeah,
You could theoretically never go to sleep at college. If you want to be out every single night, you could do that, but then realize you're going to pay the piper at the end of the week, end of the month, whatever it is. You're going to be exhausted and not
yeah.
performing well. So just start to think about your lifestyle choice. And I am not the guy that say don't go out and have fun. If you have a ball, you get to be young once. You should live it up when you can, but do it in a way that doesn't destroy every other aspect of your life, right?
Yeah.
Trying to be
Yeah.
smart about your social life.
I think those are really great points as well because similarly, the athletes that I saw coming up that succeeded right away were the ones who could figure that out, and your mum and dad aren't there to do it for you now. So I think that's again, if we talk to the parents, this is something that we can be doing to prepare your young athletes for college, is having them manage their schedule because they're going to have to do it, having them understand when do I need to eat. because we're moving from a development phase of athlete development into a performance phase. So
Right.
yes, you can go out every night. You can live that college experience. You can try and be good academically. You can try and perform, but you're not really going to perform in any of those. And so now, if you want to be on the team, you've got to figure out these areas of performance that you probably haven't had to think about a lot, right? As the playing field starts to level and everybody's really good, the guy who's sleeping, the guy who's eating, the guy who's hydrating, the guy who's studying the playbook, now those are the guys that get the edge, right? So really
100%.
valuable insight there.
And one thing I say to, like every strength coach, I would have the meetings at the beginning of the year, talk about expectations, stuff like that. And the thing I would tell all of our freshmen, men and women, 12 sports across the board is this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And realize this, if we're talking about September 5th, say, everybody feels good. Everybody's crushing. Everybody's doing great.
Yeah,
October 5th, it's a little less, right? November 5th, some people are done already. And by December 5th, everybody's kind of exhausted and needs a break, right? So one thing that's really good about the college schedule is there's breaks built into it. It's not 12 months a year. We have to give you off for, say, for example, Thanksgiving for certain sports,
yeah,
Christmas for certain sports, spring break for basketball, whatever it is. So you only got to really prepare and perform at a high level for relatively short periods of time, which is different than Major League Baseball, NBA,
yeah,
NHL, where it's just like so long.
yeah,
So use that to your advantage, right? Realize that I got to clock in from maybe September 1st until Thanksgiving. Then I get like a week off to go home and recover. Then I got to go hard in December, maybe,
yeah,
depending on what sport you play. But, don't 4 years is a long time to wrap your head around if you're 17,
yeah,
18 years old. But I
yeah.
think breaking it down into kind of digestible blocks of I need to go hard for 10 weeks here, 8 weeks here, whatever it might be, is a little more easier thing for a lot of young people to wrap their mind around.
Yeah, really fascinating way to sort of chunk that 4 years and make it achievable. And I think what's really important there is as we go from AAU, which is sort of this year-round grind, the importance of having those breaks. Like allow yourself to rest. Don't try and be the 12-month athlete. We've got to perform at a very high level and recover and then get back to perform. Otherwise, at the end of 4 years, you'll be a shadow of who you used to be.
Yeah, man. You've covered this on the show before. The joke I always make, but it's kind of real, is youth sports are broken in so many ways. How to fix it is so far beyond my pay grade. And the joke I always make is, if we live in an era where Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas are making billions of dollars, right? And
Yeah,
then every other organization that kind of ping pongs off the big three or eating off this, nobody cares what I think. Nobody cares how I theoretically change youth sports. So my thing is this. I wrote a book that shows you how to navigate it the way it is now.
yeah,
And I got involved in youth softball and baseball to try to help in my town and help that. So that's kind of my version. I mean, I love the conversation. I love, oh, well, if I was in charge, we would do X, Y,
yeah,
Z.
yeah.
But the one thing I thought about, I've been listening to your show is, you ever eat a McDonald's in like not a drive-through, go into a McDonald's location? Did you
Uh-huh.
ever do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I have this theory that when you go to McDonald's, the only thing you see is kids in sports jerseys and overweight parents, right?
Yeah,
Because the only
yeah,
reason you go to McDonald's is you're between practices, between games, and the kid's skinny because he or she is working out like a lunatic and has a crazy metabolism or eating, 20-piece chicken McNuggets with no repercussions
yeah,
whatsoever. And mom and dad are 30, 40 pounds overweight because they're eating the same McDonald's, but they're watching the tournament, not playing in it, right? But here's an interesting idea I've had recently when I'm in the McDonald's with my daughter because I'm saying my family's a part of that. We're doing it,
yeah,
even though I like to think I go running the next day instead of going to the tournament. But I try to
yeah.
stay in shape, obviously. But what do you think's better for that young athlete to play two AAU games, eating McDonald's in between, right? Or play one game, go home and have a home cooked healthy dinner, and go to sleep,
Right,
right? At
right.
what point is overtraining on terrible food and drink worse than doing less training and taking care of the nutrition, hydration, recovery side of
Yeah,
things? And I
yeah.
think, we're starting to see that because the injuries are getting worse at the college level, right? Getting
Correct.
worse at the pro level, and they're getting younger, right? I
Yeah,
think you guys addressed it before, but Achilles tendon tears were things that happened to guys that were on their way out. Like they were just
Right.
barely hanging on for one more contract.
Right.
If the guy that tore his Achilles tendon 10 years ago was a guy you put a game on and you forgot he was still in the league. Like, I didn't know he was
Right.
still, I didn't know he was still, I didn't know the guy was still playing for that team. And now it's the superstars. It's a
Yeah.
24-year-old rock stars who are tearing their
Yeah.
ACLs. And I'm not saying it's definitely overtraining. There's probably a bunch of things that feed into that. It might be low top sneakers. That being said, if a low top sneaker company wants to give me a deal, I can't say yes fast enough. I'll be the first guy
Yeah.
to take the money from Anta or Under Armour, one of those companies. But that
Yeah.
being said, there's a bunch of things that play into it. But that eat, sleep, recovery, hydration, that's got to
Yeah.
be a part of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And teaching in that 100-day window we've got, or you know you're going to college a couple of years out, teaching that mentality where we've got to take our nutrition seriously, we've got to sleep, we've got to recover, because we only adapt when we recover. Right?
Yeah.
The
So
stress is what breaks the body down. The recovery is what rebuilds it.
And that is something we've done a horrible job explaining to people. We don't explain it in the public school system in America very well. It's what energy metabolism looks like, right? And then we just can't stop selling no days off, go harder,
Yeah.
extra rep, always go to and I think that's not there's a value to hard work, obviously,
Yeah.
right? But hard work without rest, recovery, nutrition, hydration, you eventually cannibalize yourself, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term, right? It just
Yeah.
doesn't work long term.
So let's talk about this mindset then. Once we're on campus, we're preparing our young athletes to go to campus. They're on campus. They got to have this shift in mindset, right? The lifestyle piece, and that's got to fit into the time management piece, right? I think. How have you seen the successful athletes actually do that? Like really implement this high level mindset?
Okay, there's an idea that I developed for myself that I think just successful people in general do. It's kind of like just periodizing your life the way you periodize your
Yeah.
workouts, right? There's times of the year where conditioning is more important, times of the year where strength development is more important, times of the year where sports specific training is more important. I think in life, and you got to kind of do that same thing, right? And realize that there's certain times of the year, like finals week, class is the most important thing. It's got to be, right? And in
Mm.
my opinion, if your coaches aren't going to help you out and facilitate that, you probably picked the wrong coaches, right? But
Right.
that being said, when it's conference tournament time, now that's the most important thing, right? Or if we're in a basketball or football player and it's combine time, that's got to be the most important thing in your life to hopefully make generational wealth and change your tax bracket, right? But I think just realizing what's important is key. And I think we'll take it back one step with parents and kids at the younger level. I totally agree. There's too many showcases, too many AAU tournaments. There's too much of everything, right? But I think the one thing you can do to really help yourself out is pick out a couple events a year that will move the needle for you, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, I know you're down in Florida. Probably got some listeners down in Florida. If you're never going to play at the University of Miami or Florida State, going to those camps is a waste of time and money, right? But if you're going to maybe play at FIU, FAU, Florida Gulf Coast, that's a great accomplishment too. Get ready for those camps, right?
Right.
I think that if you're 6'10", you should definitely go to UCLA basketball camp and be ready for that, right? If you're
Yeah.
5'10", maybe go to Middle Tennessee State, whatever it is. You know what I mean? That's go to Seton Hall. We're a step down. I have no problem saying that. But I
Yeah.
think as a family, you got to be realistic and realize that not every showcase is the best opportunity, and picking two or three of places you might actually think you can end up and contribute is probably better than going to 12 and just wasting money and wearing your body down and not knowing you're not going to be able to play at that level.
Yeah. That's so valuable. That goes again back to what Carlos was saying about what is elite. Right. I'm 5'9.5". If I become the best three-point shooter I can be unguarded, I could be truly elite in hitting those shots. Someone who's 6'11" walks in and can hit those same shots. Guess who's elite?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's a joke, right? If you want to be elite, the most important thing is picking your parents, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
can't outwork 5'9". I'm even shorter than that. And the joke, parents have to be realistic too, man. I'm never going to crush anybody's dreams. But what I always say is, I'm 5'5". My wife's 5'2". We're both very thin. Our daughter playing basketball would be stupid. It doesn't make any sense. right? Now we can go hard at cross country, we go hard at soccer, we go hard at dance, we go hard at softball. Basketball ain't gonna happen if you're our offspring. It's just not. And I got every connection. I've been around the game my whole life. I can't make you taller, right? This is not gonna work. Now, I want to go back to that Carlos episode because I really enjoyed it. You called him out. I guess he's pretty tall, apparently. I've never met him.
That's right.
But you said strength coaches are all under 6 feet tall, right? I have a theory. I want to see if you rock with this or not. We thought way back in the day that lifting weights stunted your growth. That's what they said, right? So we thought lifting weights made you short. Now that's been proved wrong 100 times for decades. But I have a theory that it's the opposite. Being short makes you lift weights, right? Like I'm 5'5", so when I was 13, 14, I went to my high school weight room to try to be able to play, try to be able to compete, try to not get pushed around. If I was 6'5", why on earth would I voluntarily go start doing squats and deadlifts and box jumps and sprints?
Yeah.
It's a short man's game, and I think I'm the first guy to admit it. If I was taller, my
Yeah.
life would have been totally different. So I think, but number
Yeah.
one, him being as tall as the players is unfair to everybody else. That should
Totally unfair.
we have to look out of place in a basketball team picture. We have to. There's no time for anybody over 6 feet tall. But I think
Yeah,
I think we
but
might
you're
have that
absolutely right.
reversed.
I've always said it's physics, right? I'm strong because look at my lever system versus someone who's 7 feet tall.
Yeah, you're moving the resistance less distance. There's no way to
Right? Yeah,
argue.
it's a better set of levers and pulleys, and I'm built for that. But no one's going to pay
Right.
me $20 million a year to do that.
Yeah, we were just built for something nobody cares
Yeah,
about, which is not
and
not great.
we were really good. We worked hard at our sports. We got as high as we could go, and then physics took over. The height thing became an issue, and so we wanted to be in sports. So we became strength coaches.
But I do think one thing that's pretty cool about this, we're laughing, having a good time about it, that when you meet a man or woman that's got the right frame and has the genetic gifts, right? And then you combine that with what we do and what we can teach them about
Yeah,
nutrition, hydration, recovery, that's where it gets really special, right? That's where you got a LeBron
really
James
does.
who's performed at a super high level for 20 plus years, I think, at this point, right?
Yeah,
The other thing I think that's always been special to me is the man or woman you help make a team, right? That's
yeah,
maybe a fringe player. If it's in the NBA, you might change their financial future by they make
right,
it the 10th man on the roster versus getting sent down to the G League. At the lower levels where I've been, making a team is a life changing experience for a young man or woman, right? That
right.
could change everything in their life. So I think we might be only incremental improvement we offer, but that is super valuable in certain
Yeah.
situations.
I want to build in as well as we go through that process, and there's a scheduling element to that. You mentioned periodization, which is basically just planning out blocks of your time and having those few key goals going into college. I think it's going to be really important. Then when you make that transition onto campus, talking to your professors is such a great tip that I wouldn't have thought to mention to anyone. But also take with you your schedule. I think one of
Yeah.
the things that, I have ADHD, so I've always struggled with maintaining routine and schedule. But when you write it down, take a calendar and actually draw the blocks that you're going to be busy and doing stuff, and physically look at your schedule, and now point to where are you going out,
Yeah.
right? When are you going to be up till 3 in the morning and be able to be at your best at that practice? If you can physically see it each week, it's a whole different ball game when you have that mindset of drawing it out, looking at your time commitments. It really gives you a dose of reality as you sit down on campus and think about your lifestyle.
And I would say this too, and just to add to that, which I couldn't agree with more. And this is getting better. It was really bad when I got in this profession 20, 25 years ago, but the student athletes are a little bit better about this. Communicate with professors, communicate with the performance staff. Tell them
Yeah,
what your goals are. Tell them how you feel after a workout. Tell them, communicate what's going on. Because I always say that with me, I was always the kind of coach where if a freshman first week on campus wants to tell me something, I'm going to listen to it, but I don't know how much stock I want to put in it because the man or woman's new, right? Everything's going to be
yeah,
sore, everything's going to be hard every time. But if your upperclassmen are telling you that hamstring workout tore us all up, right? Or those
right,
conditioning intervals were nuts, and now we're all done for the next 3 days, kind of thing. You got to take the veterans' opinions into account, right? Because they've been through it, they know what's going on,
right.
and they're your. I always say I think you should at least know what you're asking people to do. You got to train yourself. But at the same point, take like the environment's different when a team is doing something together versus you doing it in the gym by yourself. And then, you probably can't take the rock star genetic specimens so they don't get sore or beat up about anything.
Yeah.
And then you got the bottom who are just always complaining. But if the middle of the pack is giving you feedback, you
Yeah.
should probably take it into account, right?
Well, and that goes for the athlete as well, right? Like as us as performance staff, we don't know if you don't tell us.
Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah.
that's another part of that mindset is don't be a complainer. But if there's some real issues, if there's starting to be some grumbling going on within the squad where there's some look like gossip in the locker room, we'll change, right? We'll adapt if you come and sit down and have a respectful conversation with us. Don't let it get to a blow up.
But I used to say to coaches and players, and it's a cliche, but it's true. Let's not let a small problem become a big problem. Let's deal with it when it's a small problem, right? If I tell you we're doing, just straight ahead speed development every Monday for the next 10 weeks, and the first Monday we come in with way too much volume, more intent, whatever we're doing is wrong, and you let me do it with you another 9 weeks in a row, and then you have a hamstring blowout, whose fault is that? Like clearly there's fault in my programming, but there's also fault in you had a problem for 9 extra weeks and didn't tell me about it. Didn't
Yeah,
give me a chance to fix
yeah,
it. So I think that communication, and I'll say this, I think at the college level, and you can tell me at the pro level, I think it's gotten better. That kids are kind of better advocates for themselves and have no
yeah.
problem telling you things that maybe 20 years ago they were kind of scared to say. So I think that's a positive.
Yeah, we had to change that culture in the NHL where athletes were actually not allowed to be in the training room unless they were being rehabbed, which meant at some point they were going to be rehabbed, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're going to see everybody
So,
under that
yeah, and
fence.
so then we actually changed it to where there were mandatory appointments for every athlete every week. And so you
Okay.
had your time that you had to be on the table. Guys were like, look, I don't want to look like that guy, especially those guys trying to make a roster
Yeah.
or trying to make a starting lineup or even the game day squad. They didn't want to be seen in that environment. So we had to be very clear in our communication as a staff what we were asking of the players and why we were doing it. So, really, really important to change a mindset there and be an advocate, be vocal, not every time your muscles are sore, right? Learn the difference in what's pain, what's soreness, what's fatigue. And as you start crossing those thresholds, now go and talk to your strength coach, but don't leave it
And,
too late.
and, 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 and advice I would give to everybody your first semester on college, start managing that fatigue ahead of time, right? So
Yeah,
realize that like being sore is a good thing to some extent, right?
right.
If the next day you're in the hot tub, in the cold pool, getting a massage, doing foam roll, there's a million things out there, but figure out what works for you and figure out a routine, right? Because I think
Right.
in the two, if you were to look at the professional basketball, professional hockey that you've worked in, the guys that are good, I'm going to guess, have a routine, right? Every
Yeah.
game day at 10 a.m., I'm doing this. Every day at 11, I'm doing, more or less. And this is how I get my body to function 82 times a year plus the playoffs.
Right.
College is really no different. It's less games, but the amount of training and effort is probably about the same because it's a different level of athlete.
Yeah.
And if you can manage that soreness and manage that fatigue, you're going to be better at the end of the season than the people that chose not to do that.
That routine piece is something I want people to pay attention to. That feeds into this periodization, this scheduling. It's been a really consistent theme here. I struggled when I went to the pro level because you go from college and it's 6 days a week. You're in at 5:30 a.m. You're leaving at 7:30 p.m. But it's every day. Now you go into an environment where you've got practice day, then it's a travel day, then it's a game day, then it's another travel day, so it's different every day. If you can establish a routine, because there'll be patterns, right? That I named the type of day, not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Here's what I do on these days, right? In soccer, it was big on game day minus 2, 3, 4, all these sorts of things, right? Have a routine that you go through that is for your academics, your physical recovery, your physical preparation, your medical care, all of these things that you've got to do. Have that routine. I think that's such a critical thing for people to take away. And the other
Definitely.
piece to this that I want us to talk about a little bit and you and I will have both experienced this in our careers in sport, but we've talked about this schedule, right? That's absolutely nonstop. Your identity comes so tied in with your career and your performance levels that I think it's a really important piece to talk about is how do we encourage these kids to have time away from their sport or another thing that they're interested in? Because once you leave this totally immersive environment, this almost institutionalized mindset where you do nothing outside of it, it can be a real challenge, at the end of that 4 years, or if you get injured or, you go to the pros and then you retire.
I think a couple things. I think on the college level, one thing I always said to our Seton Hall kids was if you can have roommates that are not on your team, that's a good start. Because now at least when you go back to your apartment, back to your dorm, you're having another conversation. It's not just constant rehashing what happened in practice, talking about why coach lost his or her mind. Because you have something bad happen. Think about it. I was all in on Seton Hall athletics for 20 years. When I left the front gate, I was gone. My wife
Yeah.
didn't care anything about athletics. She still doesn't, right? My daughter eventually became a big fan of college sports and I knew all the players and it was really awesome. But she didn't care about like the day to day. We had this hamstring pull. We had this ACL rehab. She just like going to games and having, college kids know who she was.
Yeah.
So I think the key is when you leave the facility, you got to leave it at the facility. It's so much
Yeah.
easier said than done, especially at the pro level where your entire livelihood and economic future is dependent on it.
Yeah.
But I think you got to be able to leave the facility and again go pursue some other things that you like, right? And go meet. And a college campus is probably easier than pros because you probably dealt with guys they got traded to the Maple Leafs and didn't know another person in Toronto
Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
the organization. But if you're on a college campus, if you're an accounting major, go study with someone in your class that's not on your team. Go join a club. Go do something different in the area that's not with the same 20 people over and over again. I mean, that's a good start, right? And then
Yeah.
I think, find things you like and pursue those as a leisure thing, video games, movies, whatever it might be. And then try to get the ball rolling in your career too. Because, if you join the accounting club, if you could be on the exercise science council, whatever it might be, if your schedule allows it, which again is easier said than done, start thinking about the next step and how you can get the ball rolling for that. You know what I mean? But I think just kind of thinking a little bit bigger and again, easier said than done, but try to establish an identity outside of it. I think what one good thing
Yeah.
about social media is you can kind of do that, right? Like even
Mhm.
if you're immersed in a college or professional sports setting all day and night and travel and the crazy world we both lived in for a long time, your Instagram could be Pokemon cards or Nintendo games or certain kind of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like back in the day, that's probably a little bit harder. But now you could use social media to kind of distract yourself in a good way from an immersive career, right? And
Yeah.
then grow those interests that you probably just couldn't back in the day.
Yeah, and I think I can't emphasize that enough. Just knowing myself, and you and I have had a conversation about this where every single time I had a conversation, once I got into sport, everyone, they lead with the, what do you do? I do this for the university or this for this pro team. Wow, that's so cool. Pat on the back, right? You've got a cool tracksuit to wear. You're at these fancy games. You're flying on charter planes, and also, everyone's emailing you. Everyone wants you to talk at this thing or come on this podcast. And as soon as you walk out the door, this is for staff. It stops,
It does. And,
right?
and two
And
things.
same for the athlete.
I'm going to give some two pieces of advice for anybody listening that's in that world now, right? If you get that wave, if you get hot for a minute because you're the guy or the girl at Toronto Maple Leafs, Seton Hall University, whatever it might be, ride it for all it's worth. Don't say no to anything. And I'm being serious about that because one thing I would say, the second 10 years I was in college athletics, I started to look at my position as my business card. And
Yeah.
that got me in the door for speaking engagements, book deals,
Yes.
podcasting. If you're going to be a strength and conditioning coach, performance coach, athletic trainer, anything in the world that we worked in, you got to do the 1 hour rule. So 1 hour a day, you got to spend working out. You got to make yourself physically stronger, better, know what you're asking your players to do. That's fair. And the other hour every day, you got to spend building revenue and income streams outside of your real job because
Yeah.
that real job could end at any minute, right? So
Yeah.
I always say, at least no matter how busy I got, how crazy it was, for 1 hour a day, I'm writing my next book. I'm sending emails to get on podcasts. I'm putting together NSCA events. Because my thing is when I think I did a decent job of this, because I knew it was going to end. I was looking for
Yeah.
the exit for a while, because number one, the landscape of college sports changed in a way that I'm not sure I wanted to be involved in anymore. So I
Right.
started a couple years early and was like, I'm going to write this book about it and figure out a way to change my lifestyle and fit in academia and be able to do the things I want to do, be around my family, all that stuff. But if you got that ball rolling, right, and you've already been on a bunch of podcasts and spoken a bunch of places and written some books, when your job ends, either through your decision or the organization's decision, you're hitting the ground running, right?
Yeah.
The men and women that are just so immersed in a 9 to 5 job in any profession, when it ends, they don't know what to do with themselves, and they have
Exactly.
no groundwork set for the next thing, right? So I always say I was lucky enough to have a job for 2 decades, which is unheard of. I hope to be at this job for 2 decades. Honestly, I really like it so far. But if tomorrow it's over for me, somebody decides I can't do this anymore, I got 6 other things I do that are going to keep the ball rolling and hopefully keep some income coming in and
Yeah.
keep my name out there, which I think is the smartest thing to do, because you got to be all in, right? If somebody's paying you to do a job, you got to be
Yeah.
committed. But you also got to realize this could end at any second, and you got to be ready to make the next step.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it was something that in my career, I was always that team guy. I was very much in the background. At the Leafs, we actively basically weren't allowed to have social media even, right? It's not
Okay.
like the guys you see now are sort of building a brand
Yes.
around the role that they're in. And that's my first piece of advice to practitioners as well, is you have to leverage this brand, because when they are done with you, they are done with you, right? And it will be nothing to do with what you've done. Your performance could be nothing to do with it. And as we shift from the staff to the athletes, that's going to be magnified. So
Yeah.
what are you doing? Understand, this is either a 4-year college career or it's a pro career. Well, what's that going to look like? Maybe if you're really great, 8, 10 years. Year 6, year 5, year 4, you have to be starting to get out and think about, how do I transition out of this? That because if you call people as a D1 college athlete, you call up, you're going to get an internship, right? If
Yeah.
when I was the director of sports science and performance of the Toronto Maple Leafs, people answered the phone, people sent emails back. If you wait until you're out, which frankly a lot of that I did, it's difficult. If you send, Jeremy Bettle at gmail.com doesn't get the same response as TorontoMapleLeafs.com, right?
Yeah, and that's why I started this with when you got to strike when the iron's hot. If you're lucky enough to get kind of hot for a second in any profession, you got to run with it. You got to get the ball and run with it, because that spotlight could go away at any second. And I'll be honest with your listeners, man. The job I'm doing right now as a professor at Kean University, when I got it offered to me and I had to make a decision, was I going to leave 20 years of college strength and conditioning
Yeah,
to go over to the classroom side of things? In my head, my argument was, right now, summer 2025. I'm currently the New Jersey State Director of the NSCA. That's, if I wait a year, I used to be the New Jersey State Director of the NSCA, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
have a book right now that it's doing some good numbers sales wise. I've been on 50 plus podcasts this year. So if these people want to know anything about me, if you Google me right now, it's all book expert on college sports, right?
yeah.
Right now, I just won Adjunct Professor of the Year at Seton Hall in 2024. So I was a current Adjunct of the Year for that year. If I wait a year or two to start applying to other jobs, all of that's things I did in the past,
Yeah.
right? So I looked at it like, I'm never going to be this, for lack of a term, hot again. Most likely, if I found a group of people that are going to acknowledge that and give me another opportunity, I got to take it now, because next year that same group of people is going to go look for the guy that's doing all that stuff in 2026 and
Yeah.
27, right? So I think
Yeah.
that the other thing too, as a college athlete, man, I always think about it like this. And I think that going away to college is a good thing. It can be. You see another part of the world, it could be a good thing. But I would say look at where you want to live long term and maybe try to play there for this reason. Number one, all the internships you're going to do, all the professional people you're going to meet are in that area. So if I
Yeah.
was a Seton Hall basketball player that played in front of 20,000 people 15 times a year in Newark, New Jersey, right? That means like 150,000 people in the area know who you are. That
Yes.
can't hurt when you're looking for an entry level job or to get a coaching job or run an AAU or whatever it might be. If you did things right, if you were a good player that wasn't crazy on social media and wasn't getting arrested and the things that some players do, if you were a good citizen and a good role model and a good player, some of those tens of thousands of fans are going to want to help you when you graduate if you did that right, correct?
Right. 100%. And I love that. Love it. It's such an underrated, and that's something, again, that I wouldn't have thought of as a mindset for parents and young athletes going in, thinking with the end in mind. I love that because, it resonates for me. I think about my career with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Am I going to go and run courses, run workshops in Toronto or in Punta Gorda, Florida?
Right.
Right?
The other thing I
Who's
would say too,
attending now, right?
we live in a cool time where if you're a 22-year-old athlete right now, you can go Google and go down social media rabbit hole of the people that you looked up to when you were a kid and see what they're doing now, right?
Yeah.
So I think probably the best example of this, he's a Jersey guy like me, Shaquille O'Neal, right?
Yeah.
He was a great player for a very long time. And when he was a player, he didn't say no to anything. He made rap albums, he made movies, he did multiple shoe deals. And now he's got not 100, dozens of businesses. He's on every commercial. He DJs at the biggest festivals, right?
Yeah.
And all that started when he was a player with the Orlando, probably LSU, or probably started LSU.
Probably
and
LSU,
went
yeah.
through the last 40 years. But he's like the extreme example of what's possible if you parlay sports notoriety into business, entertainment, all these other things. And let's be real, he's a generational talent because of his size, not in the basketball court too, but he's just like the perfect personality to do all this, right? So realistically, not every player can be Shaq, but even if you do 1/10 of what he's done in the business world in your post-playing career, you're rich forever. Your kids are rich forever if you do 1/10 of what Shaq did.
Exactly. Angelo, this is such a good point. We could go on for the rest of the day about this, but I'd love to wrap soon. We're right at the hour. And so let's think about our listeners. I'm a parent, or maybe I'm a young high school athlete that's listening to this. They've been sent it by a parent. What are the 3 things you want me to take away from today's show?
We've been waiting for this, man. As a fan of the show, I'm ready. I got my 3 ready. Number 1, go into college thinking long term. It's a 4-year commitment, maybe a couple more if you're redshirted, but think about where do I want to be at 30, 40, 50 years old, and is this school and this program going to prepare me to get there when you're making a decision where you want to go? And number 2, do your research and look at what you're being told on your recruiting trips and from your prospective coaches and realize, is that going to be realistic for you in the 4 or 5 years you're there, right? And then number 3, from a training perspective, whatever sport it is, however you like to train, however you're going to have to train when you get there, increase your work capacity and just realize, as good as you were in high school, college is a step up, and you can prepare for that and be ready to take that step when it's asked of you.
Absolutely love it. I love you were ready with those, ready to go. And where can people find the book, and where can people follow along with what you're doing?
Great. So on LinkedIn and Facebook, it's Angelo Gingerelli, just my name. On Amazon, it's Angelo Gingerelli as well. There's 2 books up there. One's the next 4 years, the newest one. Other ones from 2021, Finish Strong, Resistance Training for Endurance Athletes. And then on Instagram, it's Mr. Fifth Round, MR, the number 5, THRUND. And then if you want to email me, just find me on it's angelo.gingerelli@gmail.com, and I'll try to help you through this process as much as we can.
Awesome. Well, look, I know you're 6 weeks into this new career, but I really just want to say congratulations on an incredible career. Like 20 years, not everybody gets to do that and choose to walk away when they're ready to. As a college strength coach over that period of time, the impact that you've had on thousands of lives has been transformational. So really congratulations for your work, and that's a dedicated service there, and I'm sure your student athletes would agree with that.
Hey man, that means the world to me coming from you. Thank you very much, and best of luck with the show and the Vitality Collective.
Thanks so much, mate. That was such an insightful conversation with Angelo Gingerelli. Here are the 3 key things I want you to take away from today's episode. Number 1, Go to college thinking long term. Pick a program that helps you grow beyond your playing years and sets you up for success in life. Number 2, do your research. Don't take everything you're told at face value. Understand what the next 4 years will really look like before you commit. Number 3, increase your work capacity. Build the strength, endurance, and mindset now to handle the step up to college level demands. If this episode spoke to you, I'd be grateful if you could follow the show, leave a rating or a review, and share it with someone that you think could benefit. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.